For years, life just felt different. And then suddenly, back in probably 2020 or 2021, it was as if that wonder for life itself just disappeared. That deep appreciation and gratitude and enjoyment that I think many of us felt just seemed to evaporate. And life itself just became boring. And it felt like everything sucked. Conversations, being in nature, trying new things, nothing felt enjoyable like it quite used to. Within my life, at first I thought it was like depression or anxiety or just the harsh reality of becoming a young adult. But then I realized, no, it's not it, man. I'm not dealing with anxiety or depression. And I also realized that many other people were feeling the same exact thing as I was. Looking back, I've come up with three core reasons why this happened to be the case. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly why everything tends to feel boring in today's day and age. I'll share my experiences about it, and I'll briefly explain what you can do if you're feeling the same thing as I am. The first main reason why life itself feels so boring and repetitive and monotonous to many people in 2026 is the comfort of routine. See, humans, we are creatures of habit. We like to do the same things, go to the same places, talk with the same people, do the same things over and over and over again. Because ultimately, that feels safe, it feels secure. And subconsciously, deep down within our nervous system, we want to feel safe, we want to feel secure. And when we're experiencing threats within our environment, our body goes into this weird state where it's like fight, flight, freeze. Yeah, fight, flight, freeze. And maybe there's one other one, I don't know. But some people actually love it. Some people love the idea of going to the same places and doing the same things. And some people crave that predictability. Personally, me, I hate it. It gets so strange because within a few months, I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing. I'm still doing this. Even things that I love, like these videos. I love making these videos, but I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm like, all right, it's getting nicer outside. I'm going to start making these videos outside to really mix things up rather than being here in my office. Back in 2022, I really fell deep into this hole. I just finished college. I was living with my parents and just saving up money. I was working 50, 55, 60 hours a week at my job and then working on my business on the side. So I was 80, 90 hours a week at least, just making money, racking it up, paying off my bills, paying off my debt. And at the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm saving money, I'm paying off my bills, I'm being a productive member of society. But ultimately, aside from that, I had nothing going for myself. I was not in a relationship with a woman. I had minimal friendships, and my friends, well, they were all doing their own thing. I had no real drive to do something different within my life, aside from the things I was already doing. I just thought to myself, well, I guess this is it. This is just how things are. This is a part of being an adult, right? Just got to work to pay the bills, and that's it. This leads me to the next point. Number two, why for many people life feels so boring and repetitive and monotonous. The idea of nihilism. You see, I fell pretty deep into nihilism a few years back in 2022. I've been able to climb my way out of that, you could say, find my own meaning, as Nietzsche talks about, and thus spoke Zarathustra. But these last few years I've noticed a lot of nihilism, a lot of nihilistic tendencies and beliefs from many other people around me, in my physical life and on the internet. And a lot of people, young and old, seem to just be thinking, what's the point of all this if we're all just going to die someday? Or nothing really matters after all, right? And to me, it's it's kind of a shame because, yeah, you can peel back the layers and dive so deep psychologically into this idea to the point where you do realize that nothing matters and that we are these spirits or these souls in a human meat sack on this rock floating through space. But ultimately, that way of thinking doesn't actually serve you. It doesn't benefit anybody in any way, shape, or form because, well, this is our reality, right? The idea of nihilism, when you believe in nihilistic things, it doesn't necessarily make you depressed. It doesn't necessarily make you anxious, but I'd say it creates this sort of despair and cynicism that makes it tough to do anything because you conclude, as I said, that nothing really matters. I like to think that everything matters. Every conversation you have, every time you choose the positive habit over the destructive habit, every time you decide to speak up rather than keep your thoughts to yourself, all these things compound and they shape our reality in more ways than you may know. In 2022, early 2023, this wasn't the case. As I mentioned, I was very nihilistic and I was new to the workforce as a young professional, and I was seeing how the workforce was mostly demoralizing and how it was essentially draining the soul out of me and everybody around me. And this was scary. It wasn't just in my place of work specifically, but I realized this at a systemic level. I began to have more conversations with friends who were new to the workforce, and they would say the same thing. I would see the same sorts of ideas talked about online. And when you pair this to the fact with, when you pair this with the fact that life itself tended to become more transactional and people tended towards consumerism even more, especially post 2020 when we were inside for 6 to 9 months within that year, life just felt very strange. And this was, to me, this was soul crushing. And obviously this is soul crushing to so many other people as well. Because when we prioritize material goods and consumerism takes over our minds, then we begin to feel replaceable, disconnected, and you could say spiritually drained. This is what Nietzsche warned about in all of his works. He warned against apathy, avoidance, numbness, herd mentality, addiction to comfort, all these things that we're experiencing a lot in 2020, I'd say 2020, 2021 and beyond. And this brings me to the third point as to why many people think life today is boring. That is consumerism and comparison. Now, I've talked about consumerism in many other videos and even in this video itself, so I won't go super deep there. The big thing with consumerism and comparison that I want to talk about here is that when we go on social media, when we see these influencers, we're seeing a sliver of their life, literally a 1% of 1% of their life. We're seeing them chilling by the beach. We're seeing them flexing their muscles in the mirror. We're seeing them driving supercars that they very well might have rented for 2 hours. But it's the illusion of status, the illusion of power, the illusion of richness that many of these people want to put forward to their audience, just so they could turn around and be like, hey, yeah, if you want to live this lifestyle, go buy my 1997 course in the description below. And it's like, you're selling a course to people, you're selling a lifestyle to people that you really can't afford, but because of what you're portraying, it makes it look like you can't afford that lifestyle, and then you're attaching your sleazy, slimy product to that just so you can get a few $1,000s a month to continue living that lifestyle or living that portrayed lifestyle to put online. And many people fall victim to believing that everybody's crushing it. But the reality is that most people are not, all right? Yes, sure, people are doing very well financially, spiritually, mentally, in terms of their relationships, socially, everything. But a lot of what you see online, especially if you're consuming content all the time, it's a facade, it's a lie. It's a fabrication or an exaggeration of what the truth really is. When you're endlessly consuming and comparing yourself to these other people, you lose sight of the fact that what you're seeing is most likely a highlight reel. You're seeing, as I said, 1% of the 1% of this person's life. And they want to put forward the illusion of power and status and money, but doesn't mean it's actually true. That other person could have crippling mental health. That other person you're seeing, that influencer, could have terrible relationships. That person could have a life-altering drug addiction that could take them out at any moment. You never know. Just because things look like they're going all fine and dandy, and just because it seems like everything is going in that person's favor, doesn't mean it really is. If you continue to feed into these behaviors and these thoughts that that person is some ideal one that you should worship and you should obsess over their content repeatedly, then yeah, you will fall into the mindset of thinking your life sucks, your life is boring, and as a result, your life will suck and your life will become boring. So, anyways, there are a few things that I have done within my own life to essentially get out of this way of thinking, to make my life itself not feel so boring and monotonous and repetitive. All right. So, I want to share those here. The first one is what I like to call a pattern interrupt. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we are creatures of habit. We feel secure and safe, and we feel comfortable going to the same places and meeting the same people and talking about the same things because, well, we're used to it. But with a pattern interrupt, you completely break in that cycle. And it doesn't need to be permanently. It can be you take a random Wednesday off in the middle of the week from your job to go hiking. Or rather than going down this road, this particular road to go visit your family, you go down this road. It doesn't need to be gigantic, but any sort of pattern interrupt puts you in this frame of mind where you're like, all right, this is new, this is fascinating, this is novel. And when you're in those situations, you naturally feel more interested with reality itself. And you don't even need to be doing anything that's crazy. You don't need to jump out of a plane or go ride a bull or drive a monster truck. No, none of that. All right. Like I said, it's just those small micro decisions that lead to pattern interrupts. All right. So you're just breaking out of the repetitive monotony of life itself. When you can do that, life is no longer boring. Life is fascinating because you never know what's going to happen. The second thing, and this is something that undoubtedly you've heard before, but it's a dopamine detox. No internet, no social media, no TV for a designated period of time. Instead of that, you're reading books. You're going for long walks in nature with no music, no podcast, no phone, nothing. The reason why dopamine detox is so powerful, even for 2 or 3 hours, is because you're getting your brain back to baseline. That if you're somebody who consumes a lot, maybe you consume my content, you consume 10 other creators' content, then there's a very good chance that your brain is just always in overdrive. You're always thinking, or you're always consuming, but you're never really thinking, rather. And because you're always consuming, you never get to process all the information you already have within your mind. So when you can detox from this quick dopamine within your life, then you slowly shift back to baseline and you begin to appreciate, you begin to notice, rather, things happening all around you that you weren't noticing before. And then with that noticing, with that awareness that you now have, then you can appreciate. So this brings me to the third point, which is taking care of someone or something. 3 years ago, I started a garden in my parents' backyard. My dad and I built a few raised beds. I bought a few ceramic pots, and I began growing herbs, vegetables, and even some strawberries. It was great. And the reason why I did this was because, well, as I've said in this video, my life was very boring. It was monotonous. It was repetitive. I was always working my job, going to the gym, trying to build my email marketing business, which I eventually did grow to a pretty good level and was making a good amount of money. But aside from that, my life, like I said, I had nothing going for myself. So I decided, hey, I want to learn a new skill and I want to do something that isn't so mentally stimulating. I want to do something that's grounding, something that centers me. And I stumbled across gardening. And what I realized was that, yeah, while it was great for helping me just chill out, which is something I really needed, especially at that time, it gave me this sense of responsibility because I was taking care of the plants. These plants, they're living. They're a real life form, just not human. I encourage you to find whatever that is for yourself. Maybe that's taking care of a grandparent or a parent who is just getting older and can no longer do it for themselves. Maybe that's getting a dog or a cat or a goldfish or a hamster or some reptile or a frog or maybe starting a garden just like I did. Whatever the case may be, I strongly recommend this third point, you find something to take care of or someone to take care of. That'll really make things interesting within your own life. So look, I know life is difficult, life is uncertain, life is weird. There are many things that are just well beyond your control, which is something I've been talking about a lot in these last 3 or 4 videos. You have plenty of reasons to psychologically just give up and just feed into consumerism, especially since life can be very simple and easy with short-term pleasures that we have right at our disposal in 2026. But if you're feeling like your life is boring, if you feel like every day just blends into the next, do something about it, all right? These 3 things I mentioned here, they've really helped me. They've helped me out of some very dark and strange places that I found myself in back in 2022, 2023. And I like to think that it's only up from here. So, yeah, get excited about what life has to offer. Don't take life for granted. If things are boring, if things are repetitive, do something about it. It is well within your control. So, hope you enjoyed this. Those are my thoughts. I appreciate you. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon.